Threshold exists because listeners believe in it. If you think what we're doing here has value, please make a donation at thresholdpodcast.org. It's an ordinary day, 66 million years ago. Bees and butterflies are flitting among the flowers. Turtles the size of small cars are swimming through the sea. Little mammals are chattering together in their nests. And the dinosaurs are dinosauring, roaming through the forests of Antarctica, moseying along the beaches of Nebraska as the waves of the North American inland sea lap against their feet. And in what is now northern Europe, one very small dinosaur called Asteriornis is poking its beak into the ground, searching for grubs. And then, out of nowhere, an asteroid slams into the ocean near present-day Mexico. A wall of water 3 miles high radiates out from the site. The sun goes dim as dust fills the air. Rocks are vaporized and then pour back down onto the earth as acid rain. Wildfires rage, global temperatures plummet, and the giants that have ruled the planet for millennia die out. But one group of dinosaurs makes it through the cataclysm. Not the mighty T-Rexes or Triceratops, but nondescript little things like Asteriornis, scrappy microdinos that know how to get by on the margins. They use their wings to move quickly between radically disrupted habitats, their versatile beaks to eat whatever food they can find. And they use their voices to find each other in the chaos of their utterly changed world. Birds are the dinosaurs that survived. After the asteroid wiped out all of their kin, they kept going. The continents moved and the climate convulsed and changed again. And the children of Asteriornis and other small winged dinosaurs filled the globe and diversified into the 11,000 species of birds that live among us now. In honor of this triumph over adversity, the scientists who found the first fossilized Asteriornis gave it the name of the Greek goddess of falling stars, who turned herself into a quail, Asteria. But it's come to be known as the Wonderchicken. The descendants of the Wonderchicken and other small flying dinosaurs now thrive on the coldest ice, in the hottest deserts, in the wettest jungles. They live in mountains and prairies and in our cities and towns. And everywhere they go, they sing. Welcome to Threshold. I'm Amy Martin, and we humans have never walked an Earth without birdsong. When we emerged as a species, tens of millions of years after that asteroid hit, the world was already full of their voices. And in culture after culture, throughout time, we've woven the sounds of birds into our own stories and songs and poems. But like all great musicians, birds aren't just creators of beautiful sounds, they're excellent listeners too. They're engaged in a constant call and response, attuning themselves to their habitats in order to figure out who's around, where to find food, how to stay safe, and probably a lot of other things that we can't decode yet. So that's where we're going to start in this episode, listening to birds, listening to each other.
You don't see this kind of really neat riparian forest many places anymore, and it's a mile thick here.
I'm bumping along a gravel road in western Montana with wildlife biologist Dr. Eric Green. The jagged peaks of the Bitterroot Mountains are awaiting their first dusting of snow, and the trees down here close to the river are turning gold.
So this is a really healthy forest. It's not an even age stand. You can see mature trees, middle trees, and then a lot of trees of all different species coming along behind. So this is kind of what these riparian systems should look like. In the West, they're about 1% of the land cover, and yet like 80% of all species of birds around here, really depend a lot on these habitats.
Eric is professor emeritus at the University of Montana and a bird communication expert. One of the things he's studied extensively is what he calls the bird forest alarm system. And we're on our way out into the woods to see and hear this phenomenon in action. As we drive away from the highway and toward the river, we start to see some of the local birds, chickadees, nuthatches, and woodpeckers who live in Montana year-round. But some of the other birds around us here are on epic global adventures, flying together toward the tropics, some of them from as far away as northern Canada or Alaska. Red-winged blackbirds, western meadowlarks, cedar waxwings, and many other species are heading out or passing through. And they depend on places like this to rest and refuel along the way.
A lot of them migrate at night. They will have drop down in these habitats and they'll be really, really hungry. Their gas tanks are on empty. So typically they're foraging like crazy right now in these really rich habitats, and then they'll sleep and rest up and, maybe fly on tonight.
We see a big flock of robins in one of the old cottonwoods close to the road.
Foraging like crazy. So they probably flew all night and they're here. Oh, and there's a pileated woodpecker. There's a lot here. Let's hop out and just listen to it, see what we hear. I'd say 95% of my birding is done with my ears. And so let's just listen. See, look at all these robins. There's like 100 robins right here. So this is cool. This is a big group of migrating birds that probably just plopped down out of the sky a few hours ago. And they're just busy fueling up on their way to Mexico.
If you live in North America, you probably see robins pretty often. And because they're common, we usually don't get very excited about them. But as we head off into the woods, Eric says we should rethink that.
Everybody takes robins for granted. They're an amazing bird because they breed from coast to coast, from Mexico to above tree line in the Arctic. They breed from sea level to 10, 12,000 feet, and they're beautiful. I'm convinced if they were a super rare bird, people would freak out, when they saw them.
We both have backpacks loaded up with sound gear and bear spray at the ready on our hip belts. This area isn't only important to birds. Many other wild animals frequent these wet, woody zones too.
There are lots of elk right here, lots of deer, lots of bear, lots of mountain lion. I've seen them all right here. And there are grizzly bears right here.
We see a bald eagle perched on its nest across the river and hear European starlings yakking nearby. And then Eric freezes.
Oh, fantastic. There's a couple Lewis's woodpeckers just to the left of the eagle in that snag. They're just little bumps. But those are ridiculous woodpeckers. They're pink and green. But their numbers are tanking. They're really having problems in a lot of their range. And they're considered a very sensitive species of concern here. And actually, people will fly to Missoula specifically to come see that bird, Lewis's woodpeckers, because they're kind of gone. We don't know why. Probably some of it is habitat loss because they really require these really nice riparian habitats.
Lewis's woodpeckers are just one of many bird species in danger of slipping away forever on our watch. Half of the world's bird populations are in decline. A major study from 2019 showed that there were almost 3 billion fewer wild birds filling the skies over North America compared to 1970. And even so-called common birds have taken enormous hits. That's one of many reasons Eric says we shouldn't wait for a bird to become rare or endangered before we appreciate it.
I can hear some red-winged blackbirds.
Eric is an expert, and he actually heard a dozen different birds right off the bat. So there's definitely a lot of bird life all around us here. But what's striking to me is how quiet they can be when they want to be.
What I'm hearing is a pretty chill forest. There's no alarm calls, no predator around right now. So this is kind of what it sounds like for a forest, the alarm system to be turned off.
But although this place feels very peaceful on the surface right now, there's a tension waiting just below. Because this is not only a migration route, it's also a hunting grounds. Got some hawks
now look,
up there.
Yeah. Oh, these are sharp-shinned hawks. Two of them, two accipiters. Long, thin tails and broad wings.
Beautiful.
And these, all they eat pretty much is birds.
These hawks are not in hunting mode. They're flying high, riding a current of warm, rising air. But if they were flying lower and more purposefully, one of the songbirds might let out what's known as a seat call.
They sound like tss, tss, tss.
Here are some examples of different birds making these calls. A rufous-crowned sparrow, a California towhee. And if you're thinking that they sound really similar to each other, you're right. Eric says seat calls tend to sound alike and seem to be almost universally understood.
So if we play a seat call to birds here in Montana, say they're up in a bush or a tree, what'll they do? They'll dive instantly for cover. And I've recorded seat calls, and I've played them back to birds in Africa, in South America, in Europe, in various places around the world. And birds in those places know exactly what a seat call of a chickadee recorded here in Montana means. So there's been acoustic convergence kind of all over the world for these very important alarm signals, isn't that cool?
It's so cool. But hold on. If you're a robin who's spotted a nearby hawk on the wing, it seems to me that you've got a moral dilemma to solve. Do you send out an alert and warn your fellow songbirds of the danger? Or do you prioritize protecting yourself and stay quiet? Well, happily, the processes of evolution have created a way out of this quandary. Birds of prey like hawks and eagles are very good at hearing low-frequency sounds, like the rustling of a mouse moving through the grass. But seat calls tend to be higher in pitch, in ranges that predators have a harder time detecting.
And they're really hard to localize. If a bird is producing seat signals, like it's there, no, it's there, no, it's over there, no, you have no idea where it's coming from. So they're very effective alarm signals that the message gets out, but the location of the sender is hidden.
So although these seat calls might seem kind of simple at first, they're actually very sophisticated in their ability to reach some listeners and avoid others.
There's so much acoustic information that's washing over us every second, right?
In our last episode, Joel Pires talked about how people in his community in the Amazon tune into this acoustic information, especially from birds. And Eric says other animals are paying attention to birds too.
Birds can understand squirrelese, and squirrels listen into birds. They can understand birdies. There's multi-species communication networks. Basically, everything that's in the woods is listening to all the other things and all the acoustic signals. So you can see the red squirrels are kind of going off now. That was a flicker. So a lot of birds are probably just listening, and they're just scanning. They're looking around. So if one of these birds that's scanning were to see something truly dangerous, they would give the alarm. Another squirrel.
I wondered if our presence might cause the birds to make alarm calls, but Eric says probably not if we just keep walking in a casual sort of way. But he says if we change how we're moving through the forest, we could trip that invisible acoustic wire.
Animals can sort of figure out intention, I guess is what you'd call it. If we were to slow down and walk like this, sneaking along in the woods,
quietly and carefully.
Yeah, moving through the woods as if we're hunting or trying to find something, that will elicit a very specific alarm call called the sneak alarm call, which is like there's something out there and it's sneaking. It's a coyote stalking or it's whatever.
So an alarm call isn't one particular sound. It's a whole genre.
They can be very specific. Like there can be alarm calls that mean snake on the ground or flying raptor or perched raptor and what kind of threat level.
And different types and levels of threats call for different sorts of responses. A seat call says duck and hide, but this sound says gather and prepare to attack. This is a recording of a northern pygmy owl that Eric's playing from his phone. Pygmy owls are around the same size as robins. They are adorable, but they're highly unpopular here because they are extremely skilled at hunting songbirds. So the call of the pygmy owl activates a defensive alliance, a sort of NATO for birds.
Okay, here, this chickadee's coming in. Mm-hmm. And here's a warbler. Oh, hear that? Right away. Okay, count the D's on this.
He's referring to the D sounds at the end of their calls, as in chickadee-dee-dee. One of the things Eric is somewhat famous for is his 2005 study that showed more D's equals more danger. So the fact that these birds are kind of D'ing their heads off is alerting everyone nearby to the deadly presence of one of the world's smallest owls.
So we've been chasing these guys around. Now they're coming to us. Right? See them flying over our heads here?
Yeah. They think we are a pygmy owl.
Yep. Okay, here's a red-breasted nuthatch, just called. There's a, oh my goodness. There's a brown creeper that came in. They're super hard to see. It's going up that trunk.
Okay, yeah, I see
trunk.
it.
That's a brown creeper that's come in.
It's a teeny tiny little bird moving up and down the trunk of a tree, completely unperturbed by something as pedestrian as gravity. Then a flicker swoops in, and more chickadees and nuthatches keep arriving. All of these birds have banded together in mutual defense against this phantom northern pygmy owl.
You know, had there been a real pygmy owl here, they would have given it hell, and they would have probably biffed it on the head and, really been pretty aggressive. It seems a little counterintuitive, like if there's a dangerous predator, why don't you fly away? But if there's a perch predator, these birds will generally come really close. And the idea is that en masse, they can, harass the predator enough that they can kind of drive it out of the area.
So it's cross-species cooperation.
Yeah, it's many species cooperating, in sort of this joint common defense, which is very cool.
As the birds begin to fly off, Eric cues up another recording he made here. This time, instead of the call of the predator, he'll play the response from the prey, the sounds of a mixed flock just like this one, in the act of mobbing a pygmy owl.
Let's see what happens.
This is the recording.
The chickadees are coming back. They drifted off. Look at this. They're coming right in. Look, that's a nuthatch. That's a red-breasted nuthatch. Uh-huh. Right above the speaker. They're really approaching. There's probably 15 birds right here, all coming in, right?
All these little birds flying into this aspen and then moving closer and closer to the speaker. The recording that Eric was playing has ended.
So everything you hear now is the real live birds. They're right on the ground, some of them.
Getting as close to the
Yeah.
speaker as they can. They're like, this is where the problem was.
And here's some distant ones still coming in.
More and more birds fly in, responding to the call for mutual defense against this shared threat.
Oh, there's a ruby-crowned kinglet that's come in.
That little kind of greenish?
Yeah, the greenish bird. There's a wren over there. They're ignoring us. That signal went out that told them there's a dangerous predator that's perched.
But two humans sitting on the ground nearby, not worthy of alarm.
And this shows this multi-species cooperation and communication that is so cool. So here's a wren right here. We've had a brown creeper, ruby-crowned kinglet, two species of chickadees, mountain and black-capped chickadee, red-breasted and white-breasted nuthatch, a flicker, and a downy woodpecker. So 9 species. Oh, and a robin as well. So 10 species showed up. And there's the wren right there.
There's something kind of touching about these tiny little birds that are like, I hear my most dangerous predator and I will come toward you with all of my force and fury.
And it really works. It really works. Like, even though they're tiny little fragile things en masse like that, all together, they're very effective at driving away even pretty big, like sharp-shinned hawks and other things that are dangerous to them. They'll drive them off. They'll drive them out of the area.
And the squirrels lend a hand as well.
So there's probably like 6 or 8 squirrels responding to that. Even though this is stopped, they're continuing the message, right?
Alert, alert, alert.
Alert, yeah.
Eric and his students have studied the way these messages get passed through the forest, sometimes rippling through at 100 miles an hour. And when the threat has been neutralized, things quickly quiet back down. Making noise takes energy that no animal is keen to waste.
Let's see, now we're back to the default system. Really pretty quiet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's just as many birds around right now, but they're busy eating, and this alarm system has turned off. But they can mobilize it. They can turn it on like that.
But of course, it only works if they can hear it.
The world's getting to be a more noisy place, right? And that's certainly making it hard for a lot of animals to communicate. If your survival, in terms of being aware of predators, depends on hearing sounds in part from other individuals, like we just saw with this mobbing event, it's really hard to hear those signals in noisy environments.
That interference has real consequences. One study in Idaho showed that road noise made it harder for migratory birds like these to gain the weight they needed during their long journeys. And noise has impacts on our bodies too.
Noise is really stressful. Physiologically, it affects our immune system. It's not good living in super noisy environments.
So what's good for the birds is also good for us. Walking around in this place where we can hear the birds and they can hear each other is healthy for everyone involved.
Well, to me, I mean, what we've been listening to, I mean, this is as precious. The sound, the acoustic landscape is as precious to me as, you know, the beautiful trees we're looking through and the smells of the ponderosa pines and stuff. So, to me, it's incredibly important, and I get so much joy out of just being able to walk through the woods, and it gives a whole depth and richness that I don't think you can have, you know, just by walking through the woods and not paying attention to the sound. And I guess, you know, you can go on and sort of justify in the big picture why this is all very important, but what could be funner than this, right? Than walking around the woods. And, you know, we were so lucky to hear all that cool stuff. It's like, you know, after a morning like this, I just come back feeling so filled up and replenished, you know?
We'll have more after this short break. Hey, Threshold listeners, we are currently seeking your recordings of frogs and toads for an upcoming episode. Thank you so much to everyone who's already sent us recordings. We've gotten a lot. Our goal is to hear from listeners on every continent, except maybe Antarctica. Here's Sam Moore giving us an update on Operation Frog Sound at last week's Threshold team meeting. How's it going, Sam?
It's going great. We've got a couple dozen frog sounds and a couple toad sounds from all over the world. I can actually play one of my favorites if you'd like to hear a sample. These came in from a listener in Panama, and they are tungaras.
I am loving the faces of the Threshold team members as you played that sound. Everybody's eyebrows went up and heads whipped around.
We do really need some more sounds from Africa and from Australia. So if you're listening and you either live there or have sounds of frogs or toads that you recorded there, we'd love to hear them.
Very exciting. All right. Well, if you have frog sounds that you want to send in, you can send them to outreach@thresholdpodcast.org. Hey, it's Amy, and I'm popping in here quickly to tell you that I've recently started a newsletter on Substack called Letters to Earthlings. I started it for several reasons, but one of them is that I want to connect with you, Threshold listeners. We spend so much time making Threshold episodes, and then we release them, and that's kind of it. I don't know much about your experience, and I'm so curious which stories stick with you and why, what questions you're left with. I want to think with you about the big issues we're covering on Threshold and about other related things too. If that sounds fun or interesting to you, please come check it out. Once again, it's called Letters to Earthlings, and you can find it by searching for that on Substack. Thanks.
Arriving at South San Francisco.
Welcome back to Threshold. I'm Amy Martin, and I'm on a train heading toward Richmond, California, an industrial city perched on the eastern edge of the San Francisco Bay. A huge Chevron oil refinery fills up most of the land close to the water here, and highways carve up the city's core. But there's also a new arts corridor under development, community gardens, and despite all of the impacts from industry, a lot of birds. Egrets, plovers, and pelicans regularly visit the shoreline, while various hummingbirds, warblers, and other songbirds make their homes in neighborhoods and parks. And this is the way it is in a lot of cities. Birds are the wild animals we live with, even if we don't live in the wild. We see and hear them every day, often without really noticing them, but sometimes they do come into the foreground at key moments. And that definitely seems to be the case for the young man with the shy smile sitting across the table from me right now.
I'm Darius McCain. I'm 22. I grew up here in our lovely city of Richmond.
I met Darius at a youth community center called Rise. I'd reached out to ask what some of their members might have to say about the soundscape of their hometown, and Darius was one of the people who kindly agreed to talk to me. I didn't ask him specifically about birds. I just told him I wanted to hear anything he wanted to say about listening, or just about his life in general. But as it turned out, birds kept coming up in our conversation, flitting in and out of his memories and experiences.
You just want me to jump into it?
Yeah, totally.
All right, well, shoot. Growing up in Richmond, it's different.
Different how?
It's different from everywhere else, definitely the cities around us. Growing up, the sounds of gunshots, sirens, all those were just lullabies. I've had about maybe 4, 5 people die from gun violence on my block growing up. We had so many candle lightings before I turned the age of 17.
Darius says one of his earliest memories he thinks he was about 3, was when an argument erupted between 2 men in an apartment building close to his house. He was outside with his cousin, his grandma, and a neighbor he called Mama Rose.
We were outside playing, and my grandmother and Mama Rose heard him say, "Babe, go grab my gun." They both snatched the both of us up, told us to go in the house, and told us to go hop in the tub. 10 to 20 seconds after they closed the doors, and we get down the hole where you just hear, bah, 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 bah. Then like 20 to 30 minutes after that, you hear like 3 cruisers pull up.
Darius says the decade between 2005 and 15, when he was age 4 to 14, was a particularly violent time in Richmond, and the statistics back him up. The homicide rate here was terrible in that period, often 6 or 8 times the national rate.
It was a lot of shootings, a lot of policing the environment and the community. It was just a real hectic time back then, so a lot of paramedics, a lot of fire department. And I live right next to the train track, so you hear the train go past a lot.
What did it feel like? Especially with thinking of you as like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old self sitting there listening to that.
Well, the shooting don't really got no time on it, to be so honest. You'd be sitting there at like midnight, you'll hear like 3 cops blast down the street, and then you hear a fucking, excuse my language, you hear a paramedic come down the street right behind it. And it's like, oh, okay, well, somebody just got shot. Alrighty. Whoop, time to go to sleep now. This is going to sound very sad, but at that point in my life, I was sort of just normal. It was just normal. It was like, oh, they're shooting again. At the time then, I knew it wasn't normal, but it didn't really matter to me because it was so normal. I was so used to it. Then at a point in life, I was sort of involved in it too. So it's just like, it is what it is. Yeah. But now growing up and look at it now, and it's like, bro, that was no way to live. I was like, maybe I want to say like 18, 19. I leave my house. I could not walk out my house without looking right and left about 4 times each. And then I would leave my house. And after I leave my house, I'm still looking over my shoulder. That had to play in my head a couple of times, like, bro, I shouldn't have to, I should be able to walk out my house and just walk out without tripping, looking over my shoulder, none of that. Yeah. Now looking at it, it's like, yeah, that was no way to live, but hey, that's home. That was home to me.
What are some of the sounds of home that were comforting or that feel good when you think back on them?
My granny, rest her soul, that she was my world. Not was, she is my world, even though she's not here. That's why I got her tatted over my chest. Yeah, just hearing her voice, that's why it always calmed me down. Brought me back to reality. Yeah.
Are there other sounds of home that, like, I don't know, that feel good mixed in with the hard stuff?
The sounds of the birds chirping in the morning. We used to have a couple of neighbors, they used to have roosters back in the day. Shit, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the fucking morning. You just hear them, and I'm like, bro. But yeah, it's just to hear that cock-a-doodle-doing in the morning, or hear just the hummingbirds, or just the pigeons. Growing up, a lot of people on my block, they used to raise pigeons. That was like the hood thing, to raise pigeons and have your own pigeon coop in the back. So hearing them birds chirping in the morning, or hearing them pigeons get to making them weird noises and flapping around, doing tricks in the air and the whole nine, like that was the good mixed in with the bad, because it was just like, all right, I'm just gonna sit in my backyard and just watch these pigeons do backflips. And just sit here and just chill. Sip on a cup of coffee, like, that was cool. It was cool growing up, definitely with that.
This might be kind of an intense question, so feel free to say you don't want to answer, but when you mentioned the candle lightings, I'm wondering what they sounded like. What do you remember about how that sounded?
Oh, damn. The noises you would hear, it'd just be straight crying, people sad, people who, they may have got off on the wrong foot and never made their amends with each other. So you hear a lot of apologies, a lot of I'm sorry's, a lot of I should have been there. It gives you a wake up call. It does. It's a real like, yo, life is too short. It's sort of like a quiet, not quiet that you put yourself in. It's like, it sort of makes you feel like there's nobody else around you but you in your mind, but also at the same time, you're still hearing everything going around you. The other side of the spectrum would be, it's not us sitting here mourning you, it's us celebrating you. Everybody, you know, got your favorite music bumping, all your favorite songs, just overall generally just having a good time talking about the memories. We're grieving, but we're not mourning. We're sitting here celebrating what you accomplished in your life while you was here on this earthly plane. You know what I'm saying? So that was like the two sides of the spectrums on when it came to candlelight.
Our conversation took a lot of twists and turns. Darius told me about how his grandparents met here in Richmond in the Navy, where his grandmother served as a nurse. And those family ties mean a lot to him. It's a big part of what makes him feel connected to this place. But, like so many people his age, he's also feeling the urge to leave the nest.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to leave this joint, but also at the same time, I don't want to leave it because my roots is here. I can never forget where I came from, my roots, my foundation. This is my foundation. But also at the same time, I do want to leave, go to different cities.
You talked about, the hard sounds. You talked about some good sounds. How do you think it affects you when you're in a more quiet or peaceful environment and when you're in a noisier environment?
I'm actually happy you asked that. So my best example I can give you on that one is when I went to Connecticut.
As a kid, Darius went on road trips with his grandparents to visit family who lived out in the country, and it sounded different out there.
It was weird.
The quiet?
Yeah, it was weird. Like, it was quiet. Like, I was outside, like, and I'm starting to hear crickets. And I'm just like, this is way too fucking quiet for me. It was so quiet, it was uncomfortable. Because that's how quiet it gets out there.
And it's still weird, he said, even as an adult. He told me about the last time he visited, just a few years before.
To be honest, it felt like somebody was watching me, and it felt like something bad was going to happen at any moment. And it's just because, like, growing up here, when shit get real quiet like that, oh, something's finna happen. It's either 12 is finna kick a door down, you finna see like 5 cruisers roll up the block with no lights on, no nothing, but you see SWAT right behind them, like, somebody's house finna get raided, or you see somebody running down the block getting chased by a dog, or chased by the police, or chased by somebody, and it's just like, I'm just sitting here on the back, on their back porch, and they got a nice little piece of land too, that's strange. So I know I'm cool, like, oh, this is their land, but I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this is too fucking quiet. I'm sitting there just looking, like, snapping my neck a little hard. It's just like, okay, I'm really uncomfortable now.
But with a little time, Darius says, it shifts.
After you get yourself out your own head, you're like, bro, you okay? You're in a whole different state, let alone a whole different city, whole different environment. Like, just relax. Once I was able to actually sit there and just like, and relax, shit was beautiful. It was tranquilic. It's just like you sitting there. I was able to sit there, lean back, kick my feet up, and just enjoy nature. Because that's all I'm looking at is straight nature. I'm looking at trees. Like, yeah, okay, I got a whole bunch of bugs swarming around me, but it's just like, that's part of the nature. I'm hearing the crickets. I'm hearing these hummingbirds. I hear a woodpecker out in the distance. Like, you start to actually, like, hear the little small shit because it's so quiet. And it's just like you taking in, get the nice deep breaths in. And it was nice. It was real nice. And then went back out there for my auntie's funeral. Like after we, cause we're Native American too, so after we had our chief talk and said her piece on it, and then had a couple of ceremonial drummers, after that, it was just real quiet. It was quiet, and it's just like we saw this hawk start circling around us, and then as we left, it was following me, my mom, my grandma. Like it was just following all of us back home. And at least for us, that was our Aunt Clara following us and watching us. So I'm like, cause even when I came home, whole ass hawk was like for at least for a whole week straight was just following me around. Like every time I look up, I see a hawk flying past. I look up at the sky again because I feel like something watching me. Hawk does a little circle and then goes off somewhere and disappears. So it just be like the quiet after you get out your own head, it actually allows you to sit there, take in everything and enjoy it and appreciate it. So it helps me like think and like, all right, recollect my thoughts.
The forests of Montana, the streets of Richmond, wherever we are in the world, birds are there too, breaking through our isolation, connecting us to something bigger than ourselves. I'm going to end this episode with a few stories about how that's impacted my life, right after this short break.
All organisms, to some degree, are intelligent problem solvers. It's just they've evolved to solve different kinds of problems.
And whole ecosystems of working together, that's an intelligent social phenomenon.
For all the talk about the age of information, we're really entering the age of nature. Nature's Genius is a new podcast series from the Bioneers. It explores how the solutions we need are present in the sentient symphony of life. Starting February 18th, wherever you get your podcasts.
The first time I did a week of sleepaway camp, I think I was around 9. It didn't go super well. The most powerful girl in my cabin decided she didn't like me, so I became something of an outcast. It kind of sucked. But one night at dinner, the counselors told us that there would be an early morning birding hike the next day, and I perked up. They said we'd listen to the dawn chorus and learn how to identify birds by their songs. Anyone interested was supposed to set their alarms for 5 a.m. and be ready and waiting outside our cabins by 5:15. Snacks would be provided. The next morning, I was there, sitting on the cabin steps with my backpack in the Iowa darkness. Soon, my 2 favorite counselors came along to collect me. They seemed sort of surprised to see me, and I was surprised they were surprised. Weren't lots of campers going to want to do this? Shockingly, no. Not a single other kid had woken up at 5 a.m. to go listen to birds. My counselors probably wanted to bag it and go back to bed, but being the good souls that they were, the 3 of us took off on our walk into the woods. And as the sun rose, the birds started to sing. I don't remember that part, actually. I just know that must be what happened, because that's what happens every morning. And it's always morning, somewhere. The Earth spins around on its axis like a cylinder in an old-time phonograph. The sun's rays are the needle, brushing against the surface. And everywhere the light touches, the birds sing, calling a new day into being, passing their song ever westward until it comes back to them again the next day. can imagine my 9-year-old self standing there in eastern Iowa, listening, amazed. This vignette would be a great way to start the story of how I went on to become an ornithologist, or at least an accomplished birder. But that's not what happened. I'm just an ordinary lover of birds. I've learned some of their names, but I'm not particularly great at identifying them. I just love to look at them, to know they're out there. And more than anything, I love to listen to them. I love how wherever I go, I'm greeted by their voices, how they tell me where I am. The coast of Greenland. The mountains of Svalbard. The plains of Montana. The deserts of Australia. I recorded these snipes and other birds on the island of Grimsey in Iceland. This wadidi in the Kenyan savannah. And these are the sweet voices of some chickens I got to live with for a few years. I'm constantly and happily getting stopped in my tracks by the sounds of birds. Curlews returning. Cranes departing. Owls congregating down by the river just a few weeks ago. And now here I am in my yard writing this, with too many cars going by too fast, and the highway and the train roaring in the distance, and probably soon an airplane overhead. But also a pair of doves, a little convening of house sparrows, a flicker, a band of waxwings, and crows. Theirs was the first voice I heard this morning. Before I heard another person, or myself, I heard their caws. Some people complain about crow calls. They're too loud, too harsh, too something. But crows, frankly, do not care. They don't exist to decorate our lives. They're leading their own. They've got places to be, problems to solve, things to say, and apparently a lot of those things are very important. One day last fall, a whole clan of crows took a walk down my street. For several blocks, they just paraded down the road, chatting among themselves and showing us all what's what. Sure, we can fly, they seem to be saying, but we can do this too, if we want to. Birds can be goofballs and jerks. We can use birds to symbolize almost every human behavior and emotion and experience. Joy, anger, moments of insight, descent into madness. Emily Dickinson says hope is the thing with feathers, and I agree. But I think grief has them too. Birds were singing when I learned that my dad was dying. They were singing when the planes hit the towers. Whenever pain knocks me over and leaves me lying flat on the ground, I look up and birds are circling. I close my eyes, trying to find my breath and listen to them. I don't know why, but it helps. Birds are the proximate other, the aliens among us. They inhabit a realm that's all around us and always just out of reach. We can fly too, in our way, but we wait in lines, present our documents, lock ourselves into heavy metal tubes, and then fill the air with our noise and pollution. Birds, on the other hand, eat a few seeds and bugs, lift their nearly weightless wings, and soar off in silence. I love them for this, for their grace, their economy, their freedom, and how they use it. They travel the world, adding beauty everywhere they go, harmonizing with each other and all the life around them. Birds have so much to teach us about sharing acoustic space. They sing and they listen. They call and respond, and wait and call again. That's partly why hearing birdsong feels so relaxing, I think. It isn't a cacophony, it's a symphony. It hangs together. Not because anyone is conducting or controlling the ensemble, but because all the members are paying careful attention to the whole. What would I be without these creatures, tethering me to a time, a place, to my own animal self? Who would I be? Imagining an Earth without the voices of birds is like imagining a star too heavy to shed light, a sonic black hole collapsing in on itself. Once upon a time, there was a world without birdsong. May that world never come again. This episode of Threshold was written, reported, and produced by me, Amy Martin, with help from Erica Janik and Sam Moore. Music by Todd Sikafus. Post-production by Alan Douches. Fact-checking by Sam Moore. Special thanks to Dahlia Ramos and Lauren Marshall at the Rise Youth Center in Richmond. You can see pictures and donate to this amazing safe haven for young people at risecenter.org. That's rysecenter.org. The majority of the birds you heard in this episode were recorded by me, but I did supplement my own bank of bird voices with the excellent and much appreciated recordings of our own Sam Moore and the following people who contributed recordings on the website Zeno Canto: Mark Anderson, Ross Gallardi, Hazel Reeves, Peter Bozeman, Bill Grantham, Colin Reed, and Paul Marvin. Thanks to all of them. Threshold is made by Oracle Productions, a nonprofit organization powered by listener donations. You can find out more about our show and support our work at thresholdpodcast.org.